around that time again today. Orange or blue today. But is it really orange and blue tomorrow?
Why? Because we're talking about what's going to happen tomorrow?
Because we're talking about previewing the most important day of the offseason, honestly.
Do you consider training camp the offseason? Because I don't. To me, the offseason's OTAs. As far as I'm concerned, the season starts when they report back for training camp.
I don't have enough calories to burn, brother, to think like that. I'll just say this. It ain't the regular season start yet. And we're here, and this is a huge day. Absolutely huge day for, well, really both teams. But for this team, and for one, Bo Nix. So let's start there, Mace. What are we expecting to see? Jarrett Stidham with the ones today. What are we expecting to see from Bo Nix on Friday?
Well, the pattern goes every other day with the ones that be Bo Nix on Friday. I don't know what to expect. That's part of the fun of this. He could be great. There could be alarm bells that go off that say he's not ready. I do not know. I'm not afraid to say I don't know what we're going to see from Bo Nix tomorrow because we didn't see him against the ones in Indianapolis. We've seen him against the first team defense in Denver, but it's a defense that he's gotten accustomed to facing. Now you see something different. So I can't give you an answer other than I don't know.
I know we'll see some struggles. I would anticipate that just based on Green Bay's defense, and there's no official sacking, but when you can throw guys at him like Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, right? When you've got a back-end defense that features Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes at corner, slot corners, the Nixon kid, safety combination of Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard. You've got a really quality defense. We're going to talk about the other side to be sure. Yeah. But Mace, I expect Nix to have some struggles. I don't really want to hear, not you, but people get overly, he doesn't have it or he's struggling. No, I think on Friday he could struggle, and I think we need to be steady with our eyes.
Do you think that struggles could cost him starting week 1?
No, I don't think so.
So you're still marching forward with Bo Nix, even if he has a bad day on Friday.
Bad day, and it would take a disaster day and then a disaster day in the game. And he won't be playing the ones in the game. So. Yeah,
that's the thing. If he doesn't do well in practice but does well in the games, yes, obviously, something like Joe Lombardi talked about, there's a question of, what's a sack in a practice versus what's a sack in a game. Because in practice, the defense will always say they have a sack. The offense will always say, he could have gotten away from the pressure. So there's that haziness. You don't have that in a game, but you're not personnel-wise going to be seeing the type of defense that you on Sunday that you will on Friday. So I think that does matter. It's obviously a different type of example because you're not talking about rookie quarterbacks, but I remember watching the Broncos when they had joint practices with the Vikings back in 2021 in the midst of the Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater quarterback battle. And neither of them looked good. And I came away from the two practices thinking, well, you know what? The Broncos don't have the answer. Turned out they didn't. But then they spent an awful lot in terms of draft capital and cash trying to find the answer, and that didn't work out either. So here we are.
Okay, since you asked the question, I'll piggyback on this. Jarrett Stidham had a good day today.
Yes, he did.
You remember the play. We can't say what he said because he's a naughty word. But when he said, let's flip and go after the touchdown to David Sills, I believe it was,
they didn't call it a touchdown, though. They called him down at the 11-yard line.
That they did. Yes. But the team reacted. The offense reacted. Stidham reacted as it's a touchdown. So if Nick struggles, as we both expect he will, and Stidham carries momentum over, I thought he lost his confidence. Honestly, watching Jarrett Stidham this week since the Colts game, just in a couple of days, I thought, okay, there's some confidence issues. Maybe she's just kind of leveled off. Today he fought back.
Some of that maybe I think would have been just being a day removed from Wednesday, getting those second team reps and realizing that your reps on Friday were going to be against the second team. Sometimes you got to process things a bit. And I think maybe just putting on amateur psychologist hat here, I think perhaps he was processing that and what it might mean. 24 hours pass, you sleep on it, you get back out there, get back on the horse, and it looked different today. Although it was interesting, the receivers they was working with, because they were moving the receivers up and down quite a bit today. And so there you look out at one point toward the end of practice, it's when they're in move the ball, which is what led to that let's bleep and go moment that he had.
Said Jarrett Stidham excitedly.
And you look out there and toward the end of that drive, your receivers were Troy Franklin, Brandon Johnson, David Sills, Greg Dulcich, and then Samaje Perine out of the backfield. By the way, on that drive, did you have it as a sack on fourth down and 5 from the 6, or did you have a touchdown?
No, it was a sack.
I had a sack too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, by the way, I didn't get it in my notes because I had the coverage, and I had McMillan on Sills. Who had the sack?
Was it Jackson? Who was it that had the sack? I was talking to Mike Kliss about it because we both deemed it was a sack.
Yeah, I saw the sack, but I didn't get who had it. This is the thing that sometimes happens in training camp. It's like we're all like, okay, who got that play, because you don't have the same angles and you don't have the same everything covered as well, right? So, sometimes it's a little bit of it's a little bit of guesswork, especially when it's play breaking down like that one did. So right. Stidham did. So let's say that Stidham actually had that play. It wasn't a touchdown to David Sills, and the drive eventually stalled. Who did have a touchdown with the 2s was Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
Much better work on this drive and move the ball yesterday, even though he did get them to a field goal today. He did get them to a field goal yesterday, but it got off to a slow start. And actually, there was one moment where there was a play and a decision made that Sean Payton had advised them not to do when he was coaching them up, because he's working on the situational football here. And so, we'll explain that in certain situations, maybe an incompletion isn't a bad play, depending on your clock situation, your down and distance, how many timeouts you have, right? Like, what's worse if you've got no timeouts and a minute to go and you're trying to drive down the field? What's worse, a 2-yard gain that stays in bounds or an incomplete pass? Unless it's 4th and 1 and you move the chains, the incomplete pass does more damage because the clock keeps running and you have no timeouts. That's the sort of thing the Broncos are working on, and that Payton has them working on. He says there's 500 different situations. You can't get to all of them, but you're trying to get guys to kind of think and understand situational football.
Yeah, and that's why they're so well coached, and that's why they can win some games that others won't think they can win.
Mm-hmm.
That's what being a well-coached team is about. And that's what Sean Payton is. That's what he does. And a lot of teachable moments today, as Jason Garrett was there, who's showing off for his buddy.
A lot of teachable moments. By the way, they had a goal line period, but not going full speed at goal line. They went half speed. Only so much you can get out of that. Speed. What? No, not everyone did. There was one player who was going a bit fast that drew the ire of the guys on the defense. Mm-hmm. Lucas Kroll. But hey, good news that Lucas Kroll was back today.
Yeah.
On a cart last Sunday, practicing full go today.
Yeah.
That's a Garett Bolles-like recovery right there, my friend.
Well, you know what's happening across the league. Tyrone Tracy was taken off in a cart. I believe Jahmyr Gibbs was taken off in a cart. Like, they're just carting everybody. because
Do you
Tracy has the low ankle sprain. People thought he like broke his leg. So it's like, no, it's just they're kind of doing that.
Do you think this is like when you're in the hospital and you can walk and you can actually get up, but they insist on pushing you in a wheelchair to the door when you're leaving? Like, oh, I'm good. I had surgery 2 days ago, but I can walk. Nope. You're in the wheelchair.
Well, what
You're
do we
not
know
walking.
about them? What do we know about them? The players out there, Mace. I could tough it out. And it's like, okay, a team's just taking that out of their hands because players will always be like, I can tough it out.
It's going to change the way we note player was carted off.
Yes. I mean, I heard Stokely complaining about it. I was like, dude, come on.
Sometimes it's serious. Like when Quinn Bailey got hurt, like
we heard it.
I talked to, we heard it. We saw the air cast. Like that's, I mean, it was horrifying to watch, and you knew, like, for this guy, it was season's over. It was done right then and there.
Yeah, for sure. So, is it interesting to note who the second 2-minute back is? Is that register anything with you? Because I believe Kliss and I again were talking about that because it's Blake Watson. Like when Blake Watson's in behind Samaje Perine, it's like, I mean,
what does Blake Watson do? What's the biggest club in his bag?
He's a receiver.
Yes. There are some signs that I feel like, even though it's not been a great camp for Blake Watson, like I could see him being that Thomas Incoom. Incoom last year wasn't having the best of camps, but then he stuck on the 53 because they didn't want to expose him. And I could see the same thing happening for Blake Watson potentially here too.
You're making a lot of tough decisions then. If you're keeping another running back, because that would be 4 backs.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
I think barring a trade, you're looking at 3 quarterbacks.
Further making more tough decisions.
I think either one is traded or they're all still here.
Kind of like the idea of the latter, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, because the thing is, I'm not sure playing in the regular season does Zach Wilson a lot of good.
No.
It's possible you could put him out there before he's ready when he's in. I don't want to call it football rehab. I'm going to call it grad school. He's in like the Sam Darnold grad school with the 49ers last year with Kyle Shanahan. That's what Zach Wilson's getting here.
Okay.
And hopefully it'll help him out. But I don't want him. I don't want him going out there and playing when he hasn't made it through more than 20% of the syllabus. I'd like him to have a little bit more.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, see where he is and see, okay, who's sticking around with Bo Nix for 2025, because Stidham has an expiring contract and Zach Wilson has an expiring contract. One or the other, they stick around.
Right. Well, one thing to help out Bo Nix, if we preview against the Packers, and I mentioned the secondary players, like if Court can come up big for him again, because Courtland Sutton and Bo Nix seem to be building a stronger chemistry as camp has gone on. Really, it was Devon Vele. And did we hear about his injury? Coach didn't talk? Well, Coach didn't talk today.
No, we only heard from coordinators today. No, Vele left practice early. So we're still waiting for word on that one. He did not return. Like got hurt during individual drills, and then that was it for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last week or two of nothing but good things being said about Devon Vele, man, that would hurt. And it would hurt on a personal level as well, because again, we talk about his age. It's going to turn 27 in December. That does matter.
Yeah, he talked about it yesterday about how that he doesn't think about it, but we keep bringing it up, and he's like, he understands that his runway is a lot shorter, so he wants to make a larger impact. And everyone's got to calm down on this Troy Franklin stuff. I'm sorry, Mace, I'm kind of pissed about it. Of like, Franklin's a bust, and Franklin's never gonna be like, oh my God, please, it's August, okay? Emmanuel Sanders didn't do anything for 4 years. Like, I hope Troy Franklin hurries that up, but still.
Well, Emmanuel Sanders did plenty. I mean, he just wasn't a wide receiver 1, but he was a solid wide receiver 3. So he was playing. He was getting chances. He just got more chances in Denver. With Troy Franklin, I think more and more it's like, okay, let's see where he is in a year.
Yeah.
If he's struggling next year, then there's a conversation about whether he's on the roster or not. He's going to be on this roster. Now, that being said, if Troy Franklin were a 6th round pick instead of a 4th round pick, I think we'd be talking about him at best being on the bubble. But that's not the case. He's a 4th round pick. A 4th round pick is almost certainly going to stick with it because they're not going to want to expose him to waivers. Right. Especially with Tim Patrick restructured contract year, Josh Reynolds on a 2-year deal, Courtland Sutton restructuring, but the way that contract is structured, you can easily move on from him next year. So effectively, this is a contract year for Courtland Sutton for all intents and purposes. So there are so many questions that they're not going to jettison Troy Franklin because he had a bad camp. And they're not going to say, okay, we're going to jettison him because we have Devon Vele. No, they're going to want to find a way to keep both. We'll hopefully get more information on Vele tomorrow or sooner.
Yeah, sooner than that. And going up against the Green Bay Packers, what should fans be expecting from Javonte?
I think what you've been seeing so far. I think the burst should still be there. When I'm going through the list of like things about which I'm curious with this roster against the Packers, a running back who has proven that he appears to be, if not all the way back, very close to it, and has practical, successful experience in the regular season, that's pretty low on my priority list of like what I'm expecting. It's more about, I was looking forward to seeing Devon Vele. Looks like we won't see him. I'm looking forward to seeing Lucas Kroll now they got him back out there from the toe. I'm really looking forward to whatever's going on at center. Today they had Alex Forsyth, and they've even rotated Sam Mustipher in. So I don't think it's a two-person competition there because Mustipher was out there with the ones yesterday. So if they go 3-way rotation, it'd be Luke Wattenberg tomorrow, and I'd look forward to seeing what he had. I thought there was some really good work from Alex Forsyth today in run blocking. They're kind of an interesting spot here because it looks like Alex Forsyth is the superior run blocker of the 2 young centers, Forsyth and Wattenberg, and yes. Wattenberg is the superior one in pass pro. What do you do?
Yeah. You go with the guy that's better at run blocking. Our buddy Chris Thomason asked me what I thought of Wattenberg. And I said
don't know,
he's too slow on the second level. If you watch the Colts game, when he had a combo block, Mace, he was too slow getting to the second point. Like, you snap the ball, you get off, push guy, go to the second level, get another guy. And he's just a beat slow.
I would default to pass pro because you may or likely are working in a young quarterback. But I think right now, if you could mash up Alex Forsyth, the run blocker, with Luke Wattenberg, the pass protector, I think you'd have a terrific young center. Unfortunately, you can't do that right now. So you're gonna the decision may well come down to this: which one can improve the most over the course of a season with playing time in the area in which they struggle, to the point where hopefully that deficient area isn't a liability by the second half of the season. Now, the other thing is, if you look at both of them and say, well, I'm not sure either of them is going to come around in that area where they're struggling, that's where it may default back to Sam Mustipher, who's been a starter in this league. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting, like the depth chart, the unofficial depth chart says Forsyth or Wattenberg, but clearly they haven't shut the door on Sam Mustipher just yet, based on how they've been using him the last 2 weeks in practice.
And coach won't talk about him. Like, it's clear he's there.
Well, I think the thing is, it's like they want one of these 2 young centers to get the job. Mustipher's the contingency plan. Because probably if Mustipher is the center, do they cut one of those young guys? Or this would be really wild. Do you play the vested veteran game and your centers in like weeks 1 and 2 are Wattenberg and Forsyth, and you cut Mustafa and you stick him on the practice squad and then bring him back up and try and just kind of get around that early in the season?
Yeah.
We know between the vested veteran status and the practice squad elevations, the Broncos are going to play some games that are very worthy of a general manager in baseball who's maximizing the number of options that he has on a player in terms of making the decision of which player to demote, which player to keep on the major league roster. That's what we'll see with the Broncos. That there again, it's not going to be purely the best 53 that sticks. It's going to be the 53 that works the best in terms of roster management. And there will be some moves of, we can slip him through, little Jordan Humphrey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of that's coming.
Yep, that's what's coming, and it's coming soon, sooner than you think, and it'll be interesting to see how these guys match up. Now, if we switch to who are you going to face, nobody start this. Just in case Bo Nix struggles, you're going to see Michael Pratt out there. I think that'll be interesting because Pratt will probably tear up. This Broncos defense has depth problems. We saw that against the Colts number of quarterbacks.
Our old friend Michael Pratt.
If Pratt's out there dealing, I don't want to hear any and Nick struggles against the first team. I don't want to hear anyone be like, they should have taken Pratt.
Well, I mean, if you just go and do a cursory search right now for Michael Pratt, he's in competition for number 2 with Sean Clifford.
Yeah, because Clifford's
and he's ascending. There's a very real chance Pratt's the 2.
Oh yeah, easily. As soon as they.
I don't think he'll start. I think they'll start Clifford on Sunday. Clifford, the big red dog.
Clifford, the backup that was a starter and was never. I mean, he was just. I thought he might be like Taysom Hill because he's like a runner, but he is not a good passer. I don't want to beat up a kid, but he's not good.
Well, do you remember the Broncos met with Clifford leading up to the draft last year?
And I thought it would be for Taysom Hill like stuff.
Yeah, because it's certainly not as a passer. No.
So how's that an advantage for Riley Moss or Damari Mathis? We heard about their competition plenty today.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan Love's going to be tough enough to handle. And if Christian Watson's healthy, I love Romeo Doubs personally. Jaden Reed flashes a rookie. Dontavius Wicks has good size. Like you got, and I mentioned Luke Musgrave on Stokely and Josh today, but it's like you've got a collection of weapons. But Moss and Mathis, they're competing for that spot opposite Surtain. Surtain's probably going to take Watson away. So it's going to be a technician like Romeo Doubs. Great technique from that young man. I believe we saw him at the Senior Bowl, top of my head. And I think Moss Mathis, it's not the only competition besides Bo Nix we're watching. We're watching this Moss Mathis thing, and against Green Bay, this is where the leader could emerge.
It is, and you almost look at it and say, okay, is this a situation where one play makes a difference, where you're saying, okay, somebody to kind of break this, not deadlock, but it's close to it. I'd give Moss an edge right now, but it's just begging for somebody to seize the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, you were recollecting on Romeo Doubs at the, seeing him leading into the draft, watching him without Carson Strong. It was like, okay, respectfully to Carson Strong, but Romeo Doubs made Carson Strong, not vice versa. Although Strong, unfortunately, that poor guy had the knees of a 60-year-old, basically. Unfortunately for him.
Yeah, we've seen it before. Antonio Brown made Dan Lefevre. I personally believe Xavier Legette made Spencer Rattler. That's for a different show, but they've got some talent, Mace, and I give a slight advantage to Moss, like yourself. And it's just like Mathis is almost just it's such a high and a low. There's such a crest to what he does. He'll make a play, knock it away or get his hands on his pass, and then he'll get burned like twice. But then he'll make a play, but then he'll get burned for a touchdown. But then he'll make a play. It's like, and Coach Joseph did say he was confident today. I don't, outside looking in, I'm just like, I see some shaky confidence, but
I do as well. And the thing is, I like the fact that he can kind of get back up, and that's something that he struggled at times. But
sure,
if they go at him tomorrow and he allows a couple of big plays like that, I think a key thing for him, if I would like to see a one-on-one period tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Yeah.
I want, and specifically, I want to see a one-on-one period with the Broncos corners.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, with Vele pulling up and leaving the field today, I was looking forward to seeing Vele against someone else's first-team corners, and I don't think we're going to see that now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, unfortunately,
the jury will still be out. Unfortunately,
Jesus asked about Levi Wallace. It's like
still injured, hamstring.
Still injured. Yep.
I mean, they gave Brandon Jones a couple of weeks, and even this week, Jones back. He's not doing a lot. It's still been Devin Key out there with the first team. So we see Brandon Jones getting individual work, so they're easing him back in. So you'd imagine if it's a similar grade hamstring injury on Levi Wallace, then next week would be the ramp-up week, and then maybe you see get him back going full speed the week after that when you have in all likelihood, a couple of practices in that week before you go into the Labor Day bye, before everyone comes back on Labor Day. No better way to celebrate Labor Day than by working, and that's what we're going to be doing. It's what the Broncos are going to be doing too. Labor Day is not a day off.
What they do is what we do, and what we do is what we do. How prophetic.
There's some philosophical stuff there.
Don't get me talking about retro causality. We do what we do. I'll start talking about retro causality again, Mace. I'll make everyone turn away. But
we do what we do, and wherever you go, there you are.
There you are. There we went, and there we go. But we have, I think Marshawn Lloyd's hurt, unfortunately, because he has a hamstring, I believe. But he's my favorite back in this class, and he's the number 2 there now for Green Bay. So won't be seeing him, but the run defense will need to be tested. They will be tested, and Green Bay, certainly Josh Jacobs, the Broncos would be very familiar with him from his days with the Raiders, of course. A.J. Dillon there. I don't think Dillon beats out Marshawn Lloyd, but again, Lloyd's got a hamstring. But Dillon's a larger back. You're going to be facing some things. I think the test for me is Tucker Kraft. If he's available, he's questionable as well. And then Luke Musgrave. They've got a couple of tight ends. They've got like 4 receivers. It's a healthy offense in terms of talent that's getting presented to you on Friday.
Well, and the other thing is it's not one where you look at and say, okay, there's this one alpha here. It's just a bunch of really good parts. And a quarterback who is just throwing to whoever's open. Yeah. Yeah. It's in that regard, it's obviously they're running Shanahan McVay concepts, but in terms of week to week, if you're viewing it from a fantasy perspective, okay, who's going to get the big numbers? Good luck with this.
Right. Good luck, because you're going to need it.
AJ Dillon, he's the known commodity. I mean, he's you have Josh Jacobs, you have AJ Dillon, Marshawn Lloyd. If Lloyd isn't healthy, they're perfectly happy rolling Dillon out there. That's another thing with the Packers. Looking at this roster, I mean, it's a deep roster. And this is actually where, even though the Broncos are going to run with their ones on Sunday and the Packers will go with few, if any, first-teamers, the Packers' depth will probably lead to some semblance of parity, even though I think the Broncos in their depth at quarterback are much better, and that will probably, if you care who wins the game, I think the fact that the Broncos have a bit more coming off the bench at quarterback than the Packers do, I think that will end up carrying the day for them. But you'll see some talent all the way through the depth charts on the Packers that are out there on Sunday, no question.
Yeah, and at their reserve wide receivers, like the guys that are their versions of Brandon Johnson, they're all 6'2". They've all got some size and speed to
They
them.
They like the big receivers too, just like the Broncos do.
It's
so
their type.
That may be interesting for the Broncos corners because they're going to face receivers with some different moves, but same body types as the ones that they're seeing on a daily basis. That may give them a little bit of a leg up, but not too much. But it may also give the Packers may give them an edge too. So this will be a fascinating day. It truly will. Do we want to hear from Joe Lombardi and Vance Joseph on tomorrow?
Which one would you like first?
Let's start with VJ. I think he said there's something very interesting in his quote that I want to touch on for a bit.
We don't play Green Bay in the fall, so it's a nice time to test out your scheme, and also test your players. This offense has a great quarterback, obviously, and about 4 or 5, good young receivers with speed and height and quickness, good tight ends, 2 good runners. And it's a really good scheme, So for us, it's going to be a nice challenge to kind of test where we are. It's tough in this league to kind of go through camp and not know what others are doing, So your measurement it's sometimes false, So having those guys come in on Friday and again Sunday, it's going to be a good test for our defense, especially.
Your measurement is sometimes false when you're going up against yourselves. That's an interesting quote. We all recall Vic Fangio talking about the false positive at quarterback back in 2019 that can sometimes arise when a passer gets out there at the end of the season and tears it up, as Drew Locke did.
No film on him.
Yeah. There we go. Had to get that in with Vic.
You said Vic.
Said the magic word. It's that big Vic energy right there. And
shining rays of light.
Yes. But that's interesting to hear from Vance Joseph. And it also tells you that I think even the coaches aren't quite sure of all they have right now. They're encouraged. They're optimistic. But they really want to see some extended work against some number ones. Against a good team. I think, look, that the Packers team that came here in October last year wasn't good. The Packers team, but they blossomed in the last 2 months of the season. That was a different team by January. And it's one that, but for a break or two, could have very easily beaten the 49ers. I think could have beaten the Lions in the championship game and gone right on to the Super Bowl. That's how close they were. They're my pick to come out of the NFC and be in New Orleans.
So let me ask you this. Who struggles more on Friday, Bo Nix or the Broncos defense? Because it could be the Broncos defense.
It could.
I mean, it could be.
We're about to find out. As Gary Kubiak would say, we're fixing to find out just how impactful the changes on the defensive line are. In fact, we were joking. There were a few of us joking today about who's potentially going to start a fight. If there's a fight that comes, I think it's coming from the Broncos D line.
Okay.
I think they want to get after it. I think they want to make a statement. But yeah, we're going to see just how far the Broncos have come up front. This is going to be a wild practice. There's going to be so much going on. And it's rather unfortunate that that they split onto 2 fields and you got to kind of split your eyes because, man, I'm as curious as about the Broncos defense as I am about the Broncos offense, about the quarterbacks.
Yeah. And too bad it's not like Dallas, because Dallas's media, they just recorded everything. So if we wanted to go back when the Cowboys were here, all we'd have to do is go back at their YouTube and look at everything. They did everything.
That's exactly what I did that day. I went back. I watched everything.
It's great.
I had my notes from the Broncos offensive field, and I just went and watched later on the day. I watched the Cowboys offensive field, Broncos defense. Fights galore. It was chaos.
Yeah, it was madness.
Hey, chaos and a Nathaniel Hackett practice. Who knew?
Most excitement we had.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'm not sure of Green Bay's policy if they're kind of healthy like the Cowboys are. I don't
think
so. But it would be nice. It would be nice if some fans posted everything on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice as well. You want to hear from Joe Lombardi before we're out of here today?
Yeah, let's hear from offense coordinator Joe Lombardi talking about the practice tomorrow.
Yeah, it's I think it gives a little juice to practice. You know, you've been out here for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it's been, and you're seeing the same looks. And, you know, you've got some plays you like to practice, but maybe your defense's structure kind of, you know, makes it where it's not a great play, so you don't like scripting it. So it gives you a chance to work on some different things, gives you a chance to evaluate guys against different people. I think it, you know, they're not, they're facing the same guys every day. They kind of get used to them. They kind of know what their tricks are. And so I think it gives you, as much as anything, a good evaluation of your guys against different players. And then, you know, just seeing different things, reacting to different looks, you know, things you're not as familiar with. And it's probably a little more realistic at this point of camp to game day.
I like that.
I do too. So, I'm not saying I'm nervous, but I'm intrigued by tomorrow. I think we're gonna have. I think it's possible we have an entirely different view of what we've seen over the last 3 weeks, based on what we see in practice tomorrow.
Yep. I should have started the show with that.
Yeah,
that's what's potentially could happen. And by the way, it could be in a negative way.
yeah.
I mean, it could be in a positive way. Anything's possible, but like the Packers could come in here and roll.
What if the Broncos get whooped out there tomorrow?
And the game just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether they're good or bad on Friday. Game just isn't going to tell you what Friday tells you.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing. I mean, it's going up against backups on Sunday. You can't get that out. I mean, mostly backups. It's the joint practices always reveal something that matters for the season. It's fascinating. Like the Minnesota joint practices revealed that the Broncos didn't have the answer at quarterback. The Cowboys joint practices in 2022 revealed that this team was undisciplined as bleep. Last year's joint practices, Russ was kind of shaky. Like you were seeing limitations. They probably revealed more about the Rams. Like with the Rams out there, it's like it literally, you're like, boy, it doesn't matter who their skill guys are. As long as they keep Stafford upright, they've got a shot, because he was dealing. Also probably revealed some shortcomings on the Broncos defensively, especially that manifested early in the season. I remember, I think it was 2018, Broncos had joint practices with the Bears. The thing that we learned then, Broncos couldn't cover tight ends. And that's something that mattered all year, as we saw all the way down the stretch that season when they played the 49ers, for example. So we may not realize what it is tomorrow, but there's going to be a truth about this team that where we look back in 3 or 4 months and say it was evidenced that day. I'm hoping the truth proves to be positive for the Broncos, but we'll see.
As always.
And that's why I would like to see more joint practices rather than preseason games. Roy Osborne said, yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised that they're only doing the one joint practice this year. I get the whole thing of, you don't want to have fights, but I mean, if you really wanted to push it, you could have found a way to have a joint practice with the Colts last week, but they didn't do that. I wonder if next year we'll see multiple joint practices, especially with the Bronco, like away from Denver, in part because of the facility renovations.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they sort of put their hands up and say, hey, we'll go do a couple, if we're playing Carolina, we'll do a couple of joint practices with you guys out there. If we're going to, name your team. Could be any number of teams. That'll be interesting next year.
Yeah, that could be roaming around.
The truth will. Edward says Mace is right on point. The truth will set us free. Although I should add the quote from Dr. Sharon and Ted Lasso. But first, it'll piss you off.
The truth isn't meant to make you feel good.
Yeah, truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off.
I was gonna think Edward was quoting "Liar, Liar" with Jim Carrey because it'd be like, and the truth. Oh wait, no, that was Ace Ventura when he said that. The truth shall set you free.
Oh.
So
I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear.
This house is clean. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to do the whole scene.
Don't do the whole scene. Although our guy, Detroit Mission Control, did say if Zach Wilson is in grad school, does that mean he can star in The Graduate?
Well, certainly. Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
was thinking of that, or I was
Mrs.
thinking,
Robinson.
Rodney Dangerfield, whatever his back to school, right? Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Sam Kinison.
Why don't you see me? Why don't you see me when you have no class?
All right.
That's a good one. But yeah, Sam Kinison. You don't want me to do that scene either.
No.
Because you can't do it without cursing as well if you're going to do it right.
And blowing out your microphone.
Yeah. I was there. I was up to my knees in rice patties, slugging it out.
You always know when it's time to wrap because we get a little silly, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, that's exactly. Keep it fun. Keep it light. As you say, light and sweet.
Light and sweet all the way. But first, Mace, how do people help us out on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you never
miss
vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.